All right, YouTube, we're here with another interview. Today we're sitting down with a man of many hats. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself and the things that he has going on, what you can expect for now, and what he got going on in the future. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, brother.
All right, do you want to start off by telling me your name and what title you like to go by?
Okay, my name is Richard R.E.A.L, and like the brother said, I'm wearing many hats. I'm an ordained minister. I'm executive director of a youth leadership development program. I'm an educator. I'm a father, a mentor. I'm a counselor. Yeah.
Okay, you said, so you're a youth pastor, and you also have a organization called what?
R.E.A.L leaders, reaching everyone achievable limits.
Okay, well, let's get started by just telling them a little bit about your background. Where was you born?
Okay, I was born in South Minneapolis, Minnesota. I went to North Minneapolis, Polars High School. And then after graduation, I went to North Central University in downtown Minneapolis, where I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Communications with a minor in Biblical Studies. And then after that, I went on to graduate school at the University of Northwestern, where I received a Master's of Arts with an emphasis in theological studies.
Okay, was you raised in the church?
Yes, I was raised in the church. My grandparents have always kept me into the church. I was going to church all day Sunday, sometimes Saturdays, and then throughout the week. So my grandma kind of pushed Jesus and our Savior on me as a young age, young person, young man. But then when I got of age around 12 or 13, that's when I realized that I need to start building a relationship for myself. And that's when I rededicated myself to the Lord, got baptized, and got licensed when I was 16 years old to preach the gospel, and been preaching and ministering since then.
And so how did you? So you pretty much was raised in the church. You was raised in the church. You got licensed at 16. Was there ever a time in your life where you wanted to go astray, like what they call? I guess, was you ever in trouble as a kid or a teen, or did you ever go down that route any kind of way?
When I got licensed, I actually was running away from my call into the ministry. When I was licensed that same summer, I had an opportunity to intern at a law firm, Briggs & Morgan law firm in downtown Minneapolis, where I interned for about 8 summers. So I was really pursuing law, and I was going to go to law school. I had everything in order, but then I realized that I had a calling on my life to preach the gospel, as well as community outreach, deal with social justice and civil rights. So,
Now, do you have cousins or family members that was involved in street life?
Oh yeah. I had many cousins that was involved in the street life. I had many family members that passed away because of gangs. I had family members now that's currently incarcerated because of gangs. So yes, I was intertwined with all that stuff, but with the Lord's grace and mercy, He kept me away from that.
The reason why I asked that question is because there's kids out there that obviously ain't born into gangs and born into the street life, but they're around it. And a lot of times they feel like they gotta join gangs or get involved because the people around them is. So I asked that question to you for people that's out there maybe watching, to see that just because you're around it or have family members that's involved in that doesn't mean that you have to pursue that kind of lifestyle.
Yes, I agree with you with that. I think some people find their way out. Some people find their way in with the in crowd. But for me, I always thought I was different. And even my cousins, when I tried to get into that, the gang stuff, my cousins always pushed me away from that.
I told you that wasn't for you, right?
It wasn't for me, that I wasn't about that life.
Right.
If I can use the language of today. And they just encouraged me, like, dude, stay on the right track. Like, you don't want this, you don't want these problems.
That's very important because even we need more people like that. Even if they're doing bad, that they could look at somebody else around them and tell them, like, this ain't the kind of lifestyle you want to live. That's very important to have people like that. So that's good that you was able to, have family members try to push you away and tell you to stay on the right path, and obviously it worked.
Yeah. And all those words and inspirations and encouragement, kept me going because, if it wasn't for those words, if it wasn't for my cousins, my relatives, I probably would have tried to get into that lifestyle.
Right. Yep, I understand that. So let's talk a little bit about, let's go with the organization first. Once again, it's called what?
It's called Real Leaders, Reaching Everyone Achievable Limits. So what that program, it started off about 2015 as a lunch program in St. Paul Public Schools. When I was a behavior specialist, I realized that some of the young men of color needed a place where they can just be them, that they can crack jokes, talk about each other, where they can just hang out and without any teacher or without anybody trying to hassle them or anybody trying to tell them or dictate or control their environment. So every day, I had a group of about 30 to 40 young men of color boys, sixth graders that would come to my class and just sit down and have lunch. And we just sit there for about 20 minutes and they enjoyed it because I'll crack jokes with them. They'll talk about me and it'll just be, hey, forget about the school environment. Let's just enjoy each other. I realized that was really impactful, so I turned that program into a after-school program. And with that, we did a lot of sports, basketball, football, and then I noticed that they wanted that brotherhood love, that brotherly love, and that they wanted to be in a controlled environment. They wanted to be in an environment where they can just be them, and then did that for about a year. And I kept going, kept doing it as an after-school program, and then last year, I did the after-school program for about 2 years. So 2015, 2016. Then last year, 2017, I was asked to do it for an elective class. And then that's where I created a curriculum that focused on leadership development, social awareness, self-identity, learning, service learning, and then academic enrichment. And now this year, I'm tying in financial literacy. So yes, it's been touching on young men in middle school, and the young men been really growing, and they feel and have felt that they was a part of a community, a positive brotherhood.
So what made you want to start an organization of that caliber?
I realized that I have been doing this for the last, I say about 10 to 15 years at different parks and recs center. And I'm like, hey, why not create something that's going to be lasting, that's going to have a good name, and even that's going to basically make a difference. And I started it, and I just kept it going. And even to this day, some of the boys that are in high school would talk about Real Leaders, and that would talk about what they did and what they talked about and stuff. So.
And this is what's the word I'm looking for? It has an LLC, is an actual company?
Yes. So it's a for-profit LLC organization.
Now, if somebody wanted to start an organization, maybe it's something like that, maybe it's a little different, what would be like your suggestion or like an outline for them to go about that?
I would say figure out what your mission and your vision is, and try it out as a volunteering organization, or try it out as a organization giving back to the community in a sense. And if it works and if it's making a difference, then open it up to actually pursuing it on a full-time, or even on a level of different organizations as well as different schools.
So like, okay, they just by themselves and they want to start it, they might think in their head they might got to have staff and different stuff of that nature. So you just actually come up with an ideal, get a name for it, and obviously file for your LLC to make it a company, right?
Yep, and make it a company and go from there and get some people that support it. For me, I have some support in different schools that know about it, and I know people in the community that have seen T-shirts and have been asked the young men what is the program and what it's about and stuff. So yeah, you can start it off by yourself. Right now, for me, I have the leadership development program in a school, and then I do some contract work trying to help other organizations that want to do similar work. I actually create a curriculum for them and facilitate it, and then I will hand over the curriculum to them, and then they will go from there.
And how long did you say it's been up and running now?
It's been a legal company or organization, I would say, sorry, for the last I say about 14 to 16 months.
And what would you say your vision is, or where do you see it being in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I see it being in a few middle schools, and then I see it actually creating a fellowship, not a fellowship, a scholarship fund for some of those young men that went through the program in middle school. Once they graduate from high school, they have some finances to help them in college. And I also see me starting a maybe like a coffee shop slash bookstore slash meeting space for the young men to come in and work for the summer, so they can learn those valuable skills that I have taught them in middle school, and then they can use it while they're in high school working there in the summer. That's just like an internship.
Okay, I like the sound of the program, and I think that's very much needed. Anything to help the youth out, anything to help people out, period. But the youth, they're young, impressionable minds, and they need positive energy as much as they could get. So I really dig that situation. What is a way they could contact you? I'm pretty sure your contacts are different for your job. So what is the youth contact to get
You
hold
can
of?
contact me at www.mrrichardterrell.com. Yeah. Again, it's www.mrrichardterrell.com.
Okay. Now, would that touch bases for all the things you got going on?
Everything that I got, as far as like speaking engagements to the Real Leaders program to my book that will be coming out in February.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
What's the name of the book?
Okay, so I have a book. It's called There Is Hope, Letters to My Young Brothers. And that's what I learned from some of the young brothers I worked with in the last few years through Real Leaders, giving them a sense of hope. So I wrote 12 letters that kind of talk about different situations in this world, about purpose, one about dress for success, one about taking education serious, one is about being different, that it's okay to be different. It's another one figuring out who you are as a young black man. So it's a inspirational book, and also it's an interaction book. After each letter, I actually challenge them with a question, and they can actually physically write the question or the answer in the book, or they can email me the answer, and then we can dialogue that way.
That sounds pretty good. I like that. So the name of the book, once again, is what?
It's called There Is Hope, Letters to My Young Brothers, and that will be out February 2018.
Now, what gave you the inspiration to write a book? Have you done one before?
Oh no, this is actually my first book, and after writing my first book, now I got about 4 books in my mind. So I'm thinking maybe every 4 to 6 months I'll be publishing a book. But for this particular book, I felt that some of the boys feel like there's no hope. Like, they feel as if their past, or what their cousins did or what their parents done is dictating their future. So the book is a sense of hope. It's a sense of, hey, there is hope. And I use some of my personal story in my book to kind of explain why there's hope.
Okay.
I kind of talk about living in the streets, or being related to gang members. I talked about being in foster care with my grandparents. I talked about my mother being on drugs, my father not being there for many years of my life. I talked about how people ask me all the time, why do I wear a suit and tie? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of laid back today, but people ask me all the time, why you wear a suit and tie? Because that makes me comfortable. That makes me who I am. And people treat me different when I have a suit and tie on. And you have to feel good on how you dress, because if you present yourself well, you feel good, you look good, you're gonna act good. So yeah, the book is it's pretty dope. It's an awesome book. So please, you can, starting in January, people can actually pre-purchase the book. It'll be on sale right
Okay. And just on a side note, since you touched on parent and child relationships and how it dictates life, for you parents out there and for you future parents out there, do understand that you are the first person that your kids kind of want to imitate, or they see habits that you have, and just know that they're looking at you. So you do want to set good examples. We all have a responsibility to make up our own mind once we get to a certain age, but a lot of times you kind of do what you're raised to, that how you was raised. So people dictate their own future, but at the same time, parents, you got to understand that the kid is watching you. So please set a good example. So now let's talk about the youth pastor and pastor. Well, you're a youth pastor, and let's talk about a little bit about that. What's the name of your church, or?
So I'm a youth minister, youth pastor at Park Avenue United Methodist Church in South Minneapolis. So what I do is I kind of do the same thing that I do, that I have done in the schools, but more on a spiritual level. So I deal with spiritual formation. So we talk about faith, we talk about hope, we talk about Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus. We open the Holy Bible, and we kind of dig deep, and we talk about social issues and how that affects how we can use the Word of God to make change in this world. So I'm over about, I say about 50 to 75 young people in middle school and high school.
So what made you decide to do the youth pastor instead of just being a pastor?
Being a youth pastor, what right now it's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to grow spiritually and also, professionally, because I'm learning so much about the church, and I'm learning so much about how things function on a professional level, and also I'm learning that it starts with the youth. It starts with the youth and building those relationships with the parents and stuff. So eventually, I feel like God is calling me to become a senior pastor, to become a pastor of a congregation. But until then, I'm just going to continue to walk in his calling that He has in my life, and take the necessary steps to prepare myself spiritually as well as professionally.
Okay. I guess we could give them some time and dates that church service is going on, or?
So we have church every Sunday. The congregation have it. The elders, I would say, have it every Sunday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And then youth worship is every Sunday, except the first Sunday, from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m.
So you said every Sunday, so 3 Sundays out of the month
Yes.
is a youth service.
Is a youth service upstairs in a youth center, and then that's when we actually dig deep, and I talk their language, and that's how they grow spiritually.
Okay. And you was telling me a little bit about the church as I was walking in. Do you want to tell them a little bit, like you say y'all have a food shelter and clothing and
Okay,
stuff
so
like that?
Park Avenue United Methodist Church, we have so many things going on here. There's a legal clinic here. There's a cornerstone store, so they have items like a thrift store. Each item is $1. We have a library here. We have a daycare here, a preschool called Joyce Preschool, and then we actually also host the African American Registry, and also on the Dynamites, which is a urban hockey organization.
What was that last one you just said? The
African American Registry.
and what is that exactly?
It's an organization that dig deep in African American history, and they have a website that have so much information about African American history, about historians, about theologians. They have educators. They have African American people, and also I have learned in these past few days that they also have other people as well that have made an impact in the African American history. That's not African American.
Right. Yes. That's very important to know. You said something about a studio also.
Yes. So the church is also working on a studio to start recording their own music here.
Do you know exactly how that would line up? Would it have to be, so to speak, Christian music, or how does?
I'm not really sure. I just know that they're working in the studio right now. Maybe in a few months we would get a better understanding of what's going on with the studio.
Okay. Now, what would you say to people? I know pastors ain't into the business of trying to convince or convert nobody, but what would you say to people that's kind of struggling, don't know if they believe or not, or that just don't really know their way? What would be something you could say to those people?
Something I would say to them: give us a chance. Give us a chance. We all heard, negative, positive and negative things about religion as a whole, not just Christianity, but Muslims, Buddhists, and other religions as well. But I say just give us a chance. Just give us a chance. Give us an opportunity to show you better than what you have experienced before. Even with my young people here, some young people or some of the youth have not experienced youth worship. And I tell them, give me one opportunity. Just give me one opportunity. It may be coming upstairs for youth worship. It may be coming on a Wednesday night for youth group, or it may even be on a Friday evening when you want to come hang out and, be around youth for, Friday Night Live or a Christmas party or an event. Just give me one chance. And that's what I would say. Give the church one chance. Give the people just one opportunity to show you.
And what I would say on a side note is, don't blame the religion for the things that people in the religion do. You hear people all the time say, well, the pastor got a bunch of money and he went and bought a car, or whatever the case may be. That's not the religion itself. That's not God itself. That's the person that's in that, religion or organization, or what words you want to use. So don't blame God or the religion on things that people of flesh do, so to speak.
Right. Let him use you in his way, not the people. Like brother said, we're all flesh. We're all people. But don't let that control or have a say so with the relationship that you want to build with God, and really, be saved.
So, is there anything that you want to touch on further, just to get out there to the people, or?
Just check me out. Just check me out on www.mrrichardterrell.com. You'll find information about who I am. You can invite me to come speak at your church or your school or your organization. You can check out, a video of me, and yeah, just check me out if you want to know more. You can email me at mrrichardterrell@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. So yeah, check me out.
Is those platforms the same, Mr. Richard Terrell?
Okay, so Facebook is just Richard Terrell, and Instagram is just Richard Terrell.
Okay. And you want to give your email out one more time?
My email is mrrichardterrell@gmail.com. My website is www.mrrichardterrell.com.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time. I know you probably got some things to do. You're a man of many hats, like we said. So I ain't going to take too much more of your time. And I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
No problem. Thank you.
You take it easy, brother. Appreciate it.